Master P's son is leaving Tennessee State University. His son Hercy has entered the transfer portal, and Master P, whether he wanted to or not, actually took some shots at TSU. We're going to talk about it right after the bumper. Stay tuned. What's good people? Jeff Lightsy Jr. here with the Black Boss channel with Victory Formation. Thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe, and the notification bell because we upload every single day. Now, Master P Miller, No Limit Records, his son Hercy Miller made some noise, the three-star recruit, when he committed and signed to Tennessee State University, the HBCU down in Nashville. And this was big news because he talked about wanting to be a part of the change that's taking place in HBCU athletics. He talked about how he wanted to help the program and push it forward. You know, he was inspired by what he see Deion Sanders doing down at Jackson State University. Obviously, TSU hired Eddie George as its head football coach, so they wanted to push and bring more resources, bring more attention, bring more noise, and make it a bigger deal, make it a huge deal, so way more people, more players, more top recruits and top players choose HBCUs over Power 5 programs, and all of that sounded good. Well, Master P's son, the one who made this decision and made these proclamations, has decided to enter the transfer portal after being injured down there at TSU, and Master P, whether he meant to or not, has actually taken some shots at TSU's medical staff and what they're doing down there. We're going to read some of this article from the Tennessean. It says Master P is committed. Let's see. It says Master P's son, Hercy Miller, leaving Tennessee State because of lack of medical resources. And see, this is what this article is going to get into, how Master P is basically going to say TSU doesn't have the medical resources that his son needs to maximize his talents on the basketball court. And that may very much be true. But this isn't something you didn't know before you got there. But let's read some of the article, and then I'm going to dissect it a little bit and just, you know, talk about Master P a little bit and his son Hercy Miller, but mostly Master P. Master P is committed to leveling the playing field for historically black colleges and university. But for now, his son Hercy Miller is transferring from Tennessee State basketball program because of what the hip hop mogul believes is a lack of medical resources within the athletic program. Master P, whose real name is Percy Miller, and his son said his son did not receive proper medical attention after suffering a hip injury in the Tigers' first game of the season on November 9th against Alabama A&M, and an improper diagnosis nearly led to the end of Hercy's playing career. Quote, we got a great program at Tennessee State. We've got great people. We love the culture. We didn't have enough trainers, Master P said. We don't have enough medical people to take care of what needs to be taken care of. We don't have the technology that the Dukes and all the major universities have. And an injury like this could have been prevented, Master P told the Tennessean. He does not blame the medical staff at TSU and instead blames the disparity in medical resources between the major universities and the HBCUs on an overall lack of funding. Earlier this year, a report of the Office of Legislation estimated TSU, and I did a report on this, by the way, TSU had been underfunded by as much as $544 million in land grant funding over the years. $544 million that was essentially stolen from TSU, and they'll never get back, by the way, but that's another story for another video. It says, however, TSU athletics department told the Tennessean that the school's sports medicine department, which includes 7 full-time sports medical employees, isn't understaffed or underfunded compared to other schools of its size. Quote, the issue is not that we're underfunded at all, TSU director of sports medicine Trevor Hercy said. Quote, it's actually the opposite. The issue is that since the athletic director, Mickey Allen, has been here, we've been growing. And when you grow, your facilities have to grow as well. And that's what we're in the process of doing now. However, Master P said that he was never comfortable with TSU's medical staff during Hercy's time there and is perplexed by officials who are satisfied with the status quo. It says, quote, this is from Master P. How can we help HBCUs if we're going to sugarcoat the truth? Then we are failing the next generation, he said. What do we need to fundraise for if the staff members are saying we have everything we need? Okay, so here's the problem I have with Master P. Here's the problem I have with Master P, and I love me some Master P, and I still think he's a great guy, and I think, you know, I just have a problem, singular problem. Let's make sure we make this clear. It's a singular problem is the topic of TSU and his son going there. Master P, and he even says he's not really calling out the medical staff. He's just calling out the fact that there is big disparities between like the medical staff at TSU and say they end up saying the number. So there's 7 full-time workers at TSU, and deeper in that article, it talks about how like at a Vanderbilt, which is a Power 5 PWI, has like 37 full-time medical assistants, medical workers, trainers, all that kind of stuff. It's 37 people in their medical department for athletics at Vanderbilt as opposed to only 7 at TSU. But here's the thing, and here's why I have a problem with Master P for what he's saying in this incident. Master P, none of this was a secret when your son decided to sign to TSU. You knew what the medical staff looked like at TSU before your son ever stepped foot on campus. You knew what TSU could provide as far as trainers, nutritionists, dietitians, their facilities, everything. You knew all of that stuff before your son ever put his name on the dotted line and before he ever stepped foot on campus in Nashville. You knew all of this. And so none of this, when he sustains an injury, like it's sports, people are going to get hurt. So you had to know at some point, my son may suffer an injury. You don't expect it to be this severe. His son suffered a severe hip injury that'll cost him the rest of his freshman season, but you don't expect it to be that. But you know that at some point he's going to need an ankle tape. He's going to need, a broken finger, a cast, or something, a sling or something. You knew a knee brace or something. You knew all of this before you ever sent them to Nashville. So why is it that you're so critical, whether you want to be or not? You're trying not to be, but you are, and just by saying it, and the fact that I'm talking about it, and that the Tennessean, the biggest newspaper in Tennessee, is writing stories about it. You knew all of these things, and yet you sent them there anyway. So you can't be mad at the fact that they're understaffed, underfunded, or whatever when this happens. Because you knew what you were getting into. Your son had offers from Power 5 schools. Your son had offers from PWIs. But you turned those down with their nicer facilities, with their bigger training staffs, with all of that stuff, the better medical history or whatever. You turned all of that down to go to TSU to help level the playing field. Well, this is part of leveling the playing field. This is part of the problem at TSU. Because as soon as they get a Hercy Miller or a support from Master P, the guys pull them out. Because of the lack of the funding that they're supposed to be helping changing. You're supposed to be part of the change there. And by pulling your son out, now I'm not mad at you for doing it because you have to do, what's best for you and your family. But if your son wants to transfer, just say that. But don't blame TSU for your son transferring because you knew what you were getting into before you got into it. You knew what you were getting into before you got into it. That would be just like, I always bring up Deion Sanders because he's like the prototype. He's the model. He's what everybody's chasing as far as rearranging an organization at an HBCU. That would be like when Deion Sanders got to Jackson, Mississippi. When Deion Sanders became the head coach at Jackson State, he's like, oh, Lord. Oh, my God. This place is horrible. I mean, no offense, Jacksonians, and I got a lot of Jackson State people on here. I love y'all. I love you. But he said this is horrible. Our facilities are garbage. Our field is piss poor. Our field is unplayable, to be honest. He said our field is unplayable. And everything needs an upgrade. Our jerseys are dated. Everything needs an upgrade. But when he got there, he didn't complain about those things. He just made it happen. He said, all of our things need upgrades. We need to upgrade everything. So what do I need to do? I need to pour my resources into this. And when he got hired, it wasn't a surprise that it looked that way. He knew what he was getting into. And what did he do? Within 1 year, within 1 calendar year, everything at Jackson has been upgraded. Now, I'm not saying that Hercy Miller, one singular player, can do that for a program like Tennessee State, like a coach, the coach of the team can do, and his name being Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, can do at Jackson State. I'm not saying that's not Hercy's job to do that. But Hercy or Mercy or Percy and Master P can't complain when you knew what you were getting into. I get it. If your son doesn't like his playing time, doesn't like the fact that, that he feels like they're understaffed and underfunded, yes, just transfer. Just transfer out. But don't complain about what's taking place because you knew what it was like. That was a part of your stick. That was a part of your spiel of going there to help change these kind of things. But by coming out and saying that they have a lack of resources, we already know that. This is something we know that they aren't like Vanderbilt. We know that they aren't like Middle Tennessee State. We know that they aren't like UT Knoxville in Tennessee. We know these things. But to come out and blast, essentially, whether you meant to or not, to kind of blast them and throw them under the bus publicly does more hurt than help. Master P coming out blasting Tennessee State's medical staff, whether he did it on purpose or by accident, does more hurt than help for the university and for HBCU athletics, period. You know why? Because the next 3-star, 4-star, whatever, that's considering going to Tennessee State University is going to second guess it. You know why? Because he's going to be like, man, I remember Master P, he said that their medical staff ain't that good. He said that they're underfunded. He said that they can't, if I get an injury, at Duke or at wherever, they can catch it before it happens. Because remember in that article we just said, this was preventable. Meaning if you guys had better staffs or more people, this wouldn't have happened. I don't want to have no injury that can cost me my career. That is preventable, as Master P's words said, happened to me while I'm at Tennessee State, and I end up not being able to play basketball anymore. See, Master P is what he says, and it's more in that article. He says he took his son to a specialist that he can afford, obviously, because he's Master freaking P. Some of these guys come from nothing, so they can't afford specialists. He took his son to a specialist, and the specialist said, if you wouldn't have brought your son to me, his injury could have possibly cost him his basketball career. Well, another kid is going to read the same article from the Tennessean that I read and be like, man, why the hell would I go there? They can't even catch injuries before they happen. They're misdiagnosing injuries. That could cost me my career. Why would I go to an HBCU? Why would I go specifically to Tennessee State and play ball when they can't even diagnose injuries right? That does more hurt than help. That hurts the cause. That's pushing the cause backward. That's moving us backwards. That's almost as bad as white people, if we being honest. And I love Master P, but sometimes you got to call some of this stuff out. That's not good. That doesn't help anything. That doesn't help anything. I love Master P. And later in that article, he says that there is a chance that his son could return to Tennessee State. His son could go back to TSU, but they would have to do a lot of upgrading and a lot of stuff. And I'm like, yo, all of that stuff's not going to happen within the next 6 to 12 months. If we're just being honest. So his son's not going to end up at TSU. And once again, that'll do more hurt than help as far as HBCU athletics. And I hate it came from P because I love Master P. But, P does a lot of great things. But this one wasn't it. Leave your thoughts in the chat. Leave your thoughts in the comments on Master P's comments on the medical staff and everything that's happening at Tennessee State. My name is Jeff Lightsy Jr. And remember who told you that first? My name is Jeff Lightsy Jr. here with the Black Boss channel and Victory Formation. You can follow me on Instagram at JLightsy7. I post content on there all the time at JLightsy7 on Instagram, and on Facebook it's Jeff Lightsy Sports. On Facebook it is Jeff Lightsy Sports. Thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you next time. Peace.